All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video as we talk about a little bit about some of the transactions the Niners made here on this Monday with the extension for Colton McKivitz and the signing of Kendrick Bourne. Check out Pig and a Pickle, two locations, Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. And this video is also brought to you by Sleeper. This 49er football season is presented by Sleeper, the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world. It's a one-stop shop. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chat, season-long leagues, and, of course, Sleeper picks for daily fantasy. Use promo code Larry, and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Links in the description. Terms and conditions apply. Well, 49ers making some news on this Monday. They have signed Kendrick Bourne to a one-year deal with a max value of $5 million, according to Ian Rappaport. Bourne obviously making his second stint with the 49ers. And, ultimately, this is one of those situations where the 49ers are just running out of receivers, and they got games coming up. They've got to have guys who can step in and play. So that's really it. And the 49ers have looked for receivers. They could have signed Keenan Allen for $8 million. And Keenan Allen's quite a bit better than Kendrick Bourne. Instead, they wound up giving Kendrick Bourne $5 million. Bourne, I don't think, is nearly the same player since he suffered the torn ACL in 2023. But they say he's healthy, and here is the Niner depth chart. They have Juwan Jennings, but he's got a shoulder injury, and we'll find out what the MRI says later on today. You got Ricky Pearsall. You have Russell Gage. You have Sky Moore, who's more of a return man. You have Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who didn't do anything yesterday. And then you have Kendrick Bourne, and you also have Jordan Watkins working his way back from a high ankle sprain. So the Niners are trying to get through this early part of the season where they do not have Demarcus Robinson, do not have Brandon Ayuk. Obviously, Deebo Samuel has moved on. And so they're hurting at wide receiver, and they need as many, able-bodied receivers as they can get their hands on. And if you're looking at this wide receiver core, I mean, you got to have 5 good ones, right, that you can go to. The Niners, Pearsall, Bourne, Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore, Russell Gage. There's 5 there. If Jennings' shoulder injury keeps him out for a couple weeks, then, that would be 5. They also have Watkins working his way back. So they're in a pinch. They're in a pickle when it comes to wide receivers, and they just don't have a lot of wide receivers to choose from. And so they get Kendrick Bourne. And, Bourne is interesting from the standpoint of, he knows the system. As I said, it's a one-year deal for $5 million. There was also some talk about Kendrick Bourne's health. But obviously Kendrick Bourne is healthy. He had a foot sprain, but, Kendrick Bourne says he's fully recovered from the foot sprain. He could play as soon as this week, according to Adam Schefter. So Bourne already went to social media and said, "Missed y'all, faithful. God is the greatest." So he's happy to be back. He wore 84 the last time he was here. We'll find out what he wears this time around. But there you go. Kendrick Bourne, the newest 49er. And he gets a one-year deal for $5 million. As I said, they probably could have had a better receiver if they had just wanted to spend a few more dollars, but instead they waited for Bourne. They like Bourne. They know Bourne. The Niners have gone back to this who do we know thing all summer. Robbie Chosen, Malik Turner, basically almost everybody they've come in contact with are guys that they've had before, that they've already evaluated. Now guys get old, and suddenly your evaluation from 2 or 3 years ago isn't worth a whole lot. So we'll find out what Bourne can contribute or what he can't contribute right away, because they have a need. They need somebody who knows their system, who can run routes for them this week. So that's a tall ask for sure, but that's what they need. They need somebody who can step in right away and contribute. It's not about, hey, they could go for a younger receiver, and there's probably some better younger receivers out there, but then it's also a situation where by the time those guys get up to speed, Robinson's back and you don't have that severe need. So They obviously feel like Bourne can hit the ground running. He knows the system, and maybe he can play a meaningful role as soon as Sunday in the Superdome against the New Orleans Saints. So that was story number one. Story number two is that the 49ers have extended Colton McKivitz. He gets a 3-year, $45 million extension, and a sizable amount guaranteed for McKivitz. So good for McKivitz. Happy for that guy for sure. He's a solid tackle. I know a lot of Niner fans don't think so, but this guy's coming off his career year. He had the best PFF grade he's ever had this last year. Put on some good upper body muscle. This locks him up for the next 3 years, takes him off the market. I actually think that this could really be an indication that this is the final year for Trent Williams, because I think the 49ers absolutely don't want to have to replace 2 offensive tackles in the same offseason. So the fact that they were so kind of preemptive strike with this McKivitz signing makes me think that maybe Trent has said to them, hey guys, I think this is it. I think this is the last year. I'm going to give you all this year, or maybe they've watched it this summer and said, you know what, based on their eyes, they think this is the end of the road for Trent Williams. So very well could be the case. And I think this signing, I mean, you look at what Jalen Moore got from Kansas City. He's not even starting for Kansas City. And yet, and he never started for the Niners except in a backup role when he was forced to start. And now so if he got the money that he got, which was, 15, 16 million a year, giving McKivitz a 3-year, $45 million extension just seems like an incredible bargain by comparison. So as far as, this move goes, we'll share the screen and take a look at the 49er offensive line and what it looks like on paper. But I think what you're looking at is just, you're looking at a situation where the 49ers don't have a lot of tackle depth and need to make sure that they've got their best 2 tackles available for the rest of this year. You weren't going to do something with JJ and not do something with McKivitz. It was going to be a bad, the rest of that locker room, those old linemen are going to be like, hey, what about our guy? What about Colton? You're not going to take care of Colton, but you are going to take care of the receiver. Colton showed up all summer where JJ sat out all summer. It would have been a really bad look if Colton didn't get extended, but JJ did. So they extend JJ, they extend McKivitz, and 2 guys that they want to keep off the free agent market. They didn't really extend JJ. He's still headed towards a free agent market unless they can work out a long-term deal. But they got McKivitz off the free agent market, and he was an absolute lock to get more than 3 years and $45 million. Now, here is the Niners' depth chart on the offensive line. You've got McKivitz at right tackle, and you have obviously Trent at left tackle. But then your backup tackles are Spencer Burford, who's a converted guard, and Austin Pleasance, who's been on 4 or 5 teams and is kind of a street free agent. So they don't really have a tackle prospect on this roster that they can lean on if their tackles go down. I mean, it's Austin Pleasance and Spencer Burford, and I'm not really convinced that either one of those guys can do the job. Now, they did sign Killian Zierer to their practice squad as well, but I don't think he's a future starter in any way, shape, or form. So they're really looking at a situation where they need, Trent Williams and Colton McKivitz to stay healthy. If Williams stays healthy at left tackle, if McKivitz stays healthy at right tackle, that's the beginning of the 49ers having a chance to win the Super Bowl this year. So I think Burford is more of a guard than a tackle. I think Pleasance is totally ordinary. He looked good in the minicamp, but he looked really bad in training camp. And I just don't think they have a good enough third tackle on the roster right now. So it puts, the impetus on McKivitz and Trent Williams to stay healthy. And now, even if Trent plays this year and says, guys, I'm hanging it up, at least the Niners won't have to replace both of their offensive tackles in the same offseason. And I think that's really what this signing for McKivitz is all about. You sign him now because you don't know if Trent's going to retire or not at the end of the year. And you got to make sure that you don't go into next year's offseason needing to replace both your left tackle and your right tackle. That would be bad. So McKivitz is signed up. Jennings was given a little bit of a bump this year, but he's still headed towards free agency. Lynch says that Rosenhaus and the 49ers are still discussing a Jennings extension. And now Jennings with the shoulder, we'll find out what the MRI reports today, but he could definitely miss a couple weeks, which just added to the urgency for the 49ers to add another veteran receiver who could play right away. And lucky for them, Kendrick Bourne was sitting right there, able to fill that role. They probably offered him $3 million initially, and the injury to Jennings and the competition for Bourne, maybe they upped their offer by $1 million or $2 million. But my guess is that they probably upped their offer from what it was to the $5 million that it is. And Bourne signs, and he'll be here and able to go Sunday against New Orleans in the Superdome. And by the way, we will be in New Orleans. I will be going to New Orleans with Kev. We're going to be flying there courtesy of our sponsor, Claw-Daddy Arcades. He's a great follow on Instagram at Claw_Daddy_Arcades to find a location near you. He's got brand new locations inside Capitola Mall and Visalia Mall. And he's a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. And he is funding our venture to travel out to New Orleans to see the Niners and the Saints and do the show and make some content out in the Big Easy. So thank you, Claw-Daddy Arcades, for the sponsorship and for sending us to New Orleans. We're fired up about it. Thanks to Sleeper for sponsoring the Krug Show and this video. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.